Have you ever wondered why some women seem more drawn to turbulence than stability? Why she loses interest when everything feels calm, but suddenly lights up when there's tension, unpredictability, or drama? You might think you're doing everything right, being consistent, supportive, always available, and yet, instead of rewarding you, she drifts away. Meanwhile, the guy who gives her mixed signals, who isn't afraid to walk away, who doesn't bend every time she pouts, becomes the one she can't stop thinking about. It feels unfair, it feels backwards, but it's real. Imagine this: you're dating a woman, and for weeks, everything seems perfect. You text her good morning, good night. You plan thoughtful dates. You show up every time she calls. At first, she seems grateful. Then one day, her replies slow down. She's suddenly busy. You double down, sending longer messages, calling more often, trying to reassure her that you're the right guy. And still, she pulls further away. You can feel it: the more stability you offer, the more restless she becomes. Then, almost out of nowhere, she starts talking about another guy, someone who doesn't care as much as you do, someone who gives her less but somehow excites her more. That's when it hits you like a brick wall: she's addicted to chaos. It's not that women consciously sit down and say, "I want drama." It's that chaos plays on something deep inside them, the craving for emotional intensity. Predictability feels safe, but it can also feel dull. Chaos keeps her guessing, and that guessing creates tension, and that tension feels alive. Think of it like this: stability is a steady heartbeat. Chaos is a roller coaster. A roller coaster doesn't last long, but when she's on it, her body floods with adrenaline. That adrenaline, that uncertainty, becomes addictive, and you, the stable, reliable man, unknowingly become the quiet park bench she walks past on her way to chase the ride. Here's the cruel twist: when you try to eliminate all uncertainty in a relationship by over-explaining, over-reassuring, over-pleasing, you don't create safety. You create boredom. The relationship becomes flat. And women, even the ones who claim they want peace, often lean toward the pull of the storm. Not because they love suffering, but because intensity feels like importance. If you make yourself too easy to figure out, too available, too predictable, she stops feeling the thrill of chasing your approval. She knows you'll always be there, and what's always there gets taken for granted. Now, let's cut through the noise. What do you do when you notice this pattern? First, stop giving constant validation. If she doesn't reply immediately, don't panic and send 3 more texts. If she pulls away, don't chase harder. That's the trap. Her withdrawal tests your self-control. Most men fail this test. They get anxious, and they try to fix it by pouring in more attention. But attention in oversupply is like cheap currency. It loses its value fast. Instead, you need to do the opposite. If she pulls back, you pull back. If she takes a day to reply, you take your day back and focus on your own life. You don't punish. You don't pout. You simply refuse to play the chaos game on her terms. You force her to feel the silence, and in that silence, she realizes your attention is not infinite. It has weight. It has consequence. That's when she starts to chase. Think about a man who knows his worth. He doesn't panic when a woman withdraws. He doesn't beg. He lets her wonder. He lets her sit in the gap. And that gap becomes the very thing that reignites her desire. Chaos is not about screaming matches or wild jealousy. It's about emotional tension. And tension can be created in silence, in restraint, in the refusal to over-explain. The strongest men aren't the ones who dominate women with aggression. They're the ones who master themselves so completely that no emotional game can move them off center. Here's a story. A guy named Mark fell into the chaos trap with his girlfriend. Every time she got moody and pulled away, He tried to win her back with gifts, late-night apologies, and endless reassurance. It only made her colder. Then, one day, he stopped. She pulled away. And instead of chasing, he went to the gym, spent time with friends, and didn't check his phone. 3 days later, she blew up his phone, demanding to know why he hadn't tried to fix things. What happened? For the first time, he broke her addiction cycle. She expected chaos on her terms, but he introduced a new kind of chaos, his calm indifference. Suddenly, she was the one craving his attention, because he stopped making himself predictable. That's the paradox. You don't fight chaos with more attention. You fight it by stepping into silence, by refusing to be pulled into the storm. This isn't about playing games. It's about understanding that women test men not because they hate them, but because they crave the polarity between tension and release. If you're always the release, if you always smooth the tension instantly, she loses the very thing that makes her feel alive in your presence. Your job isn't to destroy tension, it's to hold it, to stand steady in the storm, unshaken, unbothered. That's what creates respect. That's what creates desire. Have you ever found yourself chasing harder when she pulled away, only to feel emptier in the end? What's the biggest mistake you've made when trying to keep a woman interested? Be honest. Drop your story below. Which of these traps do you recognize in yourself right now? You've probably noticed this pattern before, even if you didn't fully understand it at the time. One day she's warm, affectionate, texting you all morning. The next day she's cold, distant, her replies clipped and dry. Your gut twists. You start overthinking, did I do something wrong? Did I say the wrong thing? Is she losing interest that anxiety pushes you into action? You text again, you call, you try to check in and make sure everything is okay. But instead of pulling her closer, it pushes her further. And here's the brutal truth: the more you chase, the less she respects you. The more you reassure, the more she doubts. You think you're solving the problem, but you're actually feeding the game. Why does this work on men? Because you've been conditioned to think that relationships are maintained through effort. You believe that if something feels off, the solution is to give more, prove more, show her how much you care. That instinct is noble. It comes from a place of wanting peace. But in practice, it backfires. Women who thrive on chaos don't want peace. They want stimulation. Your extra effort is not seen as devotion. It's seen as weakness. Every time you rush to fix her mood, you teach her that she can control you with silence, with attitude, with withdrawal. She doesn't even have to yell or argue. She just has to pull back a little, and you'll bend yourself in half to get her attention again. The real cost: it erodes your masculinity piece by piece. You start losing yourself in her moods. Your confidence becomes tied to her validation. When she's warm, you feel strong. When she's cold, you feel worthless. That's the silent prison so many men walk into without realizing it. They hand their power away, one small concession at a time, until they wake up one morning and don't even recognize themselves anymore. Let me give you a picture of what this looks like in daily life. You're at dinner together. She's scrolling through her phone, barely looking at you. You notice, so you make a joke, try to lighten the mood. She gives a half smile, goes back to scrolling. You feel ignored. Instead of leaning back and letting the silence sit, you lean forward, trying harder. What's wrong? Are you okay? Did I do something? You think you're being attentive, but in her mind, she sees a man who's afraid to sit in tension, a man who can't stand the discomfort of her pulling away. And once she knows that, the game is hers. Because now, every flicker of disinterest becomes a lever. She doesn't even need to plan it consciously. Her behavior trains you to fight for scraps of attention, while she sits back and controls the tempo. So how do you break the cycle? It starts with one word: indifference. Not coldness, not cruelty, indifference. That means you don't panic when she pulls away. You don't reward silence with more energy. You don't ask what's wrong a dozen times. Instead, you give her space, but not as punishment. You do it because you have your own life. You have your own focus. You're not going to let her shifting moods dictate your value. Indifference is the weapon that starves chaos of oxygen. Here's a real tactic the next time she goes cold. Don't lean in, lean back. If she takes 4 hours to reply, don't send another text to remind her. Match her energy, or better yet, stay centered in yours. Use that time to focus on something else: your work, your training, your friends. Let her wonder why you're not scrambling to fix things, because in that wondering, she feels the tension. And that tension flips the script. Suddenly she's the one questioning if she's losing you. You see, the irony is this: women who seek chaos don't want you to join the chaos. They want to feel the push-pull of emotional gravity. If you resist the pull, if you stay grounded, she experiences a new form of chaos. You're calm. Because calm in the face of provocation is unsettling. It makes her question her grip. It makes her chase. And that's when the balance shifts back to you. I'll give you an example. A guy named Alex was dating a woman who loved to play the hot and cold game. She'd disappear for a weekend, then reappear acting like nothing happened. At first, he'd blow up her phone when she vanished, demanding answers. She fed off that it proved he was hooked. But then he stopped. The next time she pulled away, he didn't text. He went out with friends, posted pictures living his life. By the time she came back, expecting the usual barrage of messages, she was stunned by his silence. Suddenly, she was the one asking, "Why didn't you call? Did you miss me?" In that moment, he regained leverage not by aggression, but by indifference. So here's your takeaway: stop rewarding chaos. Stop handing out free attention when she withholds hers. Stop proving yourself every time she shifts her mood. The man who learns to sit in discomfort, who refuses to be baited, becomes the man she respects. Because deep down, she doesn't want to control you. She wants to feel your strength. Not strength in aggression, but strength in restraint. That's the difference between a man she uses and a man she keeps chasing. Have you ever caught yourself panicking when she went quiet, only to regret how desperate you looked? What's the hardest part for you: staying calm, holding back, or walking away? Tell me in the comments. Which of these mistakes feels like the one you fall into most often? There's a moment every man has felt, even if he doesn't admit it. That sinking feeling when you realize you're no longer leading the dynamic, you're reacting to it. She pulls back, you lean forward. She sighs, you scramble to soothe her. She withdraws, you overcompensate. And soon, your entire emotional state is dictated not by who you are, but by how she feels in that moment. That's the hidden power of chaos. It doesn't just make you chase her, it rewires you to abandon yourself. Think about how dangerous that is. A man rooted in himself is calm, deliberate, unshaken, but a man caught in her chaos becomes erratic, needy, and confused. One day you're confident and grounded. The next, you're spiraling because she didn't reply to your message. You might laugh at yourself for being so bothered by a few dots on a screen. But the truth is, it's not about the text, it's about what it represents. It's about your subconscious screaming, "You're losing her." That fear pushes you into the trap. And that's exactly why chaos is addictive for women, because it makes them the center of your universe. Now, Here's the brutal paradox. The more she feels like she can destabilize you, the less she trusts you. On the surface, she may say she wants reassurance, consistency, constant effort, but emotionally, she can't respect a man who bends every time she pushes. Respect isn't built when you give in, it's built when you hold your ground. Women will never tell you this out loud, but their attraction spikes when they sense a man who won't break under pressure, not because he's cold or cruel, but because he's immovable, like a rock in the storm. That's the man who makes her feel something deeper than chaos safety wrapped in mystery. Let's get practical. The next time you feel the urge to chase after she pulls away, stop and ask yourself, am I responding from strength or fear? Fear makes you overinvest, texting, calling, explaining yourself. Strength makes you pause, lean back, and let her show her hand. If she's genuinely interested, she'll come back on her own. If she doesn't, then you've saved yourself from pouring energy into someone who thrives on draining it. Either way, you win. Because the moment you refuse to reward withdrawal with pursuit, the game breaks. Picture this. You're out with her, and she suddenly turns cold. She folds her arms, gets quiet, maybe even throws a sarcastic comment your way. Old, you would have leaned in. What's wrong? Did I upset you? Please talk to me. That's the script she expects. But instead, you smile calmly, shift your focus, and enjoy your meal. You don't ignore her, you just don't make her mood the center of the night. You keep your energy steady. Maybe you joke with the waiter, or you talk about something else. She'll notice, and slowly, her mood will shift. Not because you begged, but because your energy never bent. That subtle strength is more magnetic than any words you could have said. Here's another tactic: test her patterns. If she goes cold and you don't chase, does she eventually reach back? If she only seems engaged when you're pulling away, then you've identified a cycle. And once you see the cycle, you hold the power. You can choose whether to keep dancing in it or to step off the floor. The man who doesn't notice the cycle gets trapped forever, confusing her withdrawal with his own failure. The man who sees the cycle has a choice, and choice is power. Now let me tell you about David, a guy who used to lose himself in every relationship. Every time a woman got moody, he'd panic. He'd apologize for things he didn't even do, just to get her to smile again. He thought that was love, but after years of being drained, he finally learned a new way. One night, his girlfriend tried the classic withdrawal move, cold eyes, short answers, staring at her phone. Instead of crumbling, David leaned back and said calmly, "Take your time. I'll be in the other room if you need me." Then he left. He didn't slam doors, didn't argue, just stepped away. An hour later, she came to him, softened, apologizing. Why? Because his calm indifference disrupted the cycle. She couldn't hook him anymore. And in that moment, he felt something he hadn't felt in years: control over himself. You need to understand this. Women don't respect a man they can control. They respect the man who controls himself. The chaos doesn't have to end in screaming, jealousy, or broken trust. It can end the moment you stop letting it dictate your behavior. Every time you choose silence over chasing, calm over panic, space over smothering, you reclaim a piece of yourself she can't touch. That's where real power lives. So let me ask you, have you ever noticed how fast you lose yourself the moment she pulls away? Have you ever regretted begging for her attention after realizing it only made things worse? What would it look like if you stopped rewarding chaos, starting right now? Most men don't realize how much they're teaching a woman about themselves in the first weeks of dating. Every little response, every text, Every glance under pressure, it all adds up to a blueprint of your strength or your weakness. If she senses you collapse at the smallest sign of tension, she files it away. I can move him whenever I want. If she sees you hold steady, she files something else. This man doesn't break. That early pattern determines whether she respects you or whether she drags you into the endless game of chaos. Let's take a brutal example. You meet a woman, and the first few dates are electric. She's warm, she's excited, she's leaning in. Then suddenly she tests you. Maybe she doesn't respond for a day, or she drops a casual line about another guy texting her. You feel the hit in your chest. Instantly, your brain goes into overdrive. I need to prove I'm the one. I need to show her I care. So you chase harder, more texts, more reassurance. You don't realize it, but you've just failed the first exam. You taught her you'll compete for her attention instead of standing firm in your own value. From that point on, the relationship isn't about her respecting you. It's about her managing your effort because she knows she can pull it out of you at will. Now picture the opposite. Same setup. She goes quiet. She drops the name of another guy. Instead of flinching, you smile. You don't react. You don't give her the satisfaction of seeing you scramble. You keep your energy the same, as if nothing happened. That's when she feels something she didn't expect, curiosity. Why didn't he react? Why didn't he chase? Does he not care? That uncertainty shifts the dynamic. Suddenly, she's the one thinking about you, replaying it in her head, wondering if she underestimated your strength. That's the power of restraint. It makes her feel the tension without you having to say a word. This isn't about playing mind games. It's about refusing to hand over your emotional steering wheel. Women test, not always because they're manipulative, but because they want to feel something real. A man who doesn't break under pressure gives her that. He creates polarity, her storm against his calm. That polarity is what keeps attraction alive. Without it, the relationship flattens into predictability. And predictability, no matter how safe it seems, kills desire. Here's the part most men miss. Your silence and restraint are not passive. They're active signals. When she withdraws and you don't chase, you're communicating, I won't fight for scraps. I know my worth. When she throws drama and you stay calm, you're saying your storm doesn't shake me. That message sinks deeper than any long speech about love, loyalty, or commitment. Because women don't trust words, they trust patterns. And your pattern, whether you like it or not, tells her exactly who you are. Let me share a story. There was a guy named Chris who fell into the chaos spiral with his girlfriend. Every fight, he'd chase her into resolution. Every silence, he'd beg for answers. He thought he was being a good boyfriend, but over time, she respected him less. One day, during another round of cold silence, he decided to do nothing. He didn't text, he didn't call. He went about his life as if nothing was wrong. After 2 days, she cracked. She showed up at his door, crying, asking why he didn't try to fix things. That moment broke the cycle. She realized his attention wasn't automatic anymore. It had weight. And for the first time in years, Chris felt her chasing him instead of the other way around. What changed? Not her behavior, his. So how do you apply this right now? Start small. The next time she withdraws, resist the urge to fill the silence. Don't mirror her mood, but don't fix it either. Hold steady. Keep living your life. When she comes back, and she will, you don't punish her. You don't gloat. You simply let her feel the gap. Over time, she learns that your attention isn't guaranteed, that it must be earned, not taken for granted. And that realization is what separates a fling from a woman's deep, lasting respect. Here's the truth you need to carry. A woman addicted to chaos isn't really addicted to the fights, the jealousy, or the drama. She's addicted to the tension. If you give her the right kind of tension, the kind that comes from your silence, your restraint, your calm, she won't need the toxic version. But if you remove all tension, if you smooth every edge, if you make yourself predictable, she'll manufacture chaos just to feel alive again. And once that cycle starts, it doesn't end until you decide to stop playing. So let me ask you this. When was the last time you held back instead of chasing? How did she react when you didn't fold to her withdrawal? And if you've never done it, what do you think would happen if you finally did? The hardest part of all this isn't knowing what to do. It's having the discipline to do it when every nerve in your body is screaming at you to chase. Because let's be real, when she pulls away, when she turns cold, when she drops that casual jab or ignores your call, it feels like rejection. And rejection triggers panic. Your brain goes into survival mode. If I don't fix this right now, I'll lose her. That panic is what makes most men fail. They can't sit in the silence. They can't stand not knowing. They rush to restore the connection, even if it means sacrificing their self-respect. But here's the paradox. The more you rush, the more she tests. Because if it only takes a little silence or attitude to make you collapse, then how can she ever trust you in the storms of real life? Subconsciously, she keeps poking, keeps pulling away, keeps creating tension, not because she enjoys watching you squirm, but because she wants to know if you'll ever stop folding until you prove that you won't. The tests never end. This is why chaos becomes addictive, not just for her, but for you too. You start living for the highs and lows. When she's warm again, you feel euphoric, like you won her back. When she's cold, you feel crushed, like you've lost everything. That roller coaster wires your brain the same way a gambler's brain lights up at a slot machine. Unpredictable rewards create the strongest addictions, and without realizing it, you become hooked on her approval, trapped in the cycle of chasing the next high of her affection. The cost of this is enormous. Your time, your energy, your focus drained into emotional firefighting. You stop being the man who had his own mission, his own vision, his own gravity. You become a man orbiting hers. That's why you feel exhausted, even when nothing is technically wrong. Because living in someone else's emotional storm means you never get to stand on solid ground. And deep down, you know it. You know you've traded your peace for her chaos. So what's the way out? It's not about punishing her. It's not about trying to beat her at her own game. The way out is reclaiming yourself. The moment you stop reacting, the moment you stop rushing to patch every crack, you change the entire dynamic. Because the one thing chaos can't survive is indifference. When her silence no longer controls you, when her mood no longer dictates your actions, when her withdrawal no longer makes you panic, that's when the cycle ends. Not because she changed, but because you did. Here's a practical frame every time she pulls away. Instead of asking, "How do I win her back?" ask, "What would a man who values himself do right now?" That shift changes everything. A man who values himself doesn't beg. He doesn't chase. He doesn't pour energy into someone who's testing his strength. He holds steady, lets her reveal her true intentions, and continues with his life. If she respects him, she'll come back stronger. If she doesn't, she'll drift away, and that's a gift, because it frees him from a cycle that would have destroyed him in the long run. Here's a story. A guy named Eric used to crumble every time his girlfriend went silent. He'd flood her phone with texts, trying to solve a problem that didn't even exist. One day, after months of emotional exhaustion, he decided to flip the script. The next time she pulled away, he didn't react. He went to the gym, met friends, worked late on his business project. Days later, she confronted him. "Why didn't you try to fix things?" He looked her in the eye and said, "Because I'm not going to fight for someone who disappears every time she's upset." in that moment. The power shifted. She realized he wouldn't tolerate chaos anymore, and for the first time, she respected him more than she resented him. That's the turning point you need to reach when your peace matters more than her mood. When you decide that no amount of beauty, attention, or affection is worth the price of living on her emotional leash. Because here's the truth: if you don't claim your ground, she'll keep pulling it out from under you, not out of cruelty, but because people only stop testing when they hit a boundary that doesn't move. Be that boundary. Be the man who doesn't bend. So I'll ask you this. Have you ever felt addicted to the highs and lows of a woman's attention? Do you see how that cycle has drained your energy and identity over time? And most importantly, what's one boundary you know you need to set, but haven't had the courage to enforce yet? Here's the brutal truth most men don't want to face. She didn't make you weak. You allowed yourself to play weak. Every time you folded under pressure, every time you let her dictate your mood, every time you gave her chaos instead of calm, you wrote the script for how she would treat you. The reason women get addicted to chaos is because men allow themselves to be dragged into it. You think you're fighting for her, when in reality, you're fighting against yourself, and you're losing. The men who escape this trap don't do it by becoming cruel, or cold, or heartless. They do it by anchoring themselves so deeply that nothing shakes them. She can pull away, and he doesn't flinch. She can test him, and he doesn't react. She can throw storms, and he stays calm. That's what creates the paradox women can't resist. They want the thrill of chaos, but they respect the man who never loses himself in it. That's when her addiction shifts not to the drama, but to your presence. Because now, you're not the source of instability, you're the source of gravity, and gravity is irresistible. You need to understand something most men never grasp. Women don't leave because you aren't nice enough. They don't get bored because you didn't give enough attention. They leave because your energy became predictable, flat, and easy to control. The chaos she creates isn't about fun. It's about testing whether there's any real strength behind your words. If you fail the test, attraction dies. If you pass it, attraction deepens. It's that simple, that brutal. So how do you pass? You stop negotiating your worth. You stop trying to buy love with effort. You stop playing savior every time she frowns. Instead, you make her feel that being with you means stepping into a different gravity. A gravity where her chaos doesn't rule. A gravity where she can feel safe, even when she doesn't admit it. And here's the kicker once she feels that. She doesn't want to leave, because deep down, every woman craves a man who is unmovable, not a man who bends at every breeze. Let me give you a picture. Imagine she suddenly throws a line at you. Maybe we should just take a break. Most men would panic. They'd beg. They'd negotiate. They'd list all the reasons she should stay. That's weakness disguised as love. The strong man looks her in the eye and says, "If that's what you want, I won't stop you." He doesn't say it with bitterness, but with calm finality. That calm hits her harder than any argument, because for the first time, she realizes he doesn't fear losing her. He only fears losing himself, and that's the man she can't shake off. Here's a real example. A guy named Nathan told me about the moment his girlfriend tried to push him into chaos. She threatened to leave, expecting him to beg. Instead, he stayed calm and said, "I don't chase. If you want to go, go." She froze. Not because she wanted to actually leave, but because she wanted to see if he'd fight for her with fear. When he didn't, her respect for him doubled. She came back, softer, because his calm forced her to face herself. That's the paradox. By being willing to lose her, he made her want him more. You have to realize, this isn't about winning her approval. It's about reclaiming your center, because once you stop fearing her chaos, you stop feeding it. And when you stop feeding it, she has a choice: rise to your level or leave. Either way, you win. Because you're no longer trapped in the addictive cycle of highs and lows. You've stepped into something stronger than chaos control over yourself. And that's the lesson I want to leave you with. She didn't break you. She revealed what you were too afraid to protect. Now you know. Now you've seen the pattern. The only question left is this: will you keep playing her game? Or will you force her to play yours? Because the moment you stop bending, you stop chasing, you stop panicking, you become the man she can't move, and that's the man she can't forget. So I'll ask you, are you ready to walk away from her chaos? Even if it means losing her, are you willing to risk the storm to protect your peace? And if you had the chance to rewrite the last time you folded, what would you have done differently?